Good morning, everybody. I wanted to give you a little intro to conflict resolution. You'll be able to use some of these tips when you're writing your project. So I have just a few slides to share. I will share my screen, and this won't take too long, but I wanted you to have this information. All right, this is my quick intro to conflict resolution. I am using tips from my favorite conflict resolution book called Getting to Yes, and I'll include the full title and the authors for this book in case you want to pick it up yourself. So I want to introduce this with a story. Consider this camel problem. A man died and left his 17 camels to his 3 sons. The sons were to inherit the camels according to these fractions. The oldest son would get half of the camels, the middle son would get 1/3, and the youngest son would get 1/9. Now, if you do some math, you might notice that that's impossible. You cannot divide 17 whole camels by half and a third and by 9. So the sons argued, and they ended up taking this impossible problem to a wise woman. And she did not have a solution. She said, I don't know much about camels. I can't solve your problem, but you can have mine. I have a spare camel. So she gave them 1 camel. So the woman's gift made the total number of camels 18. So then the sons were able to divide their inheritance according to the fractions. The oldest son had half of the camels, so he took 9. The middle son got 1/3 or 6 camels, and the youngest son took 1/9 of the 18, which is 2 camels. But if you notice that 9 plus 6, that's 15, plus 2 equals 17. So 17 total camels, and they had 1 left over. So they returned the 18th camel back to the woman who gave it to them. So just keep that in mind while we go through these tips about what's the possibility of thinking maybe outside of the box, thinking beyond the 17 camels that they needed to divide up, and somehow we're able to use an 18th camel and think about their problem differently, solve their problem, and give back the extra camel. You're probably familiar with how some traditional negotiation might go. If you've ever had a sibling, you probably experienced this model, right? The first thing is everybody chooses a position. Second, we argue back and forth. And third, there might be a winner and a loser. Or best case scenario might be that you compromise and end up somewhere in the middle. This is a different approach to conflict resolution called principled negotiation, also known as negotiation on the merits. And this method was developed by Fisher, Ury, and Patton. And you can find a lot of information about this now at the Harvard Negotiation Project. Principled negotiation focuses on these four things that will help you be more likely to get a good, wise, amicable outcome. The first thing is to remember people. Separate the people from the problem. The second thing is interests, which means focus on interests, not the positions. The third thing is options. Invent options for mutual gains. And the fourth thing to remember is criteria. We want to base the results, base the judgment of our outcome on objective standards. And I'll explain each of these things in more detail now. So the first thing, separate people from the problem. To do this, you'll need to disentangle the emotions that might come from digging in and just defending position or a side. To separate people from the problem, the parties would work side by side as opposed to opposition. This might be including physical locations in whatever space you're using to negotiate. So rather than being on opposite sides of a table, people might sit together side by side or closer to each other so that they don't feel and look like they're on opposite sides literally. Another tip for this is to withhold judgment and try on other people's perspectives. You'll be more likely to understand what they really want out of an agreement or a deal. If you withhold judgment and just say, I'm right, you're wrong, and instead try on their point of view, see what things look like from the other perspective. And the last thing to remember for this is to attack the problem, not each other. So be hard on the problem, be easy on the people. The second idea is to focus on the interests, not the positions. So as opposed to everybody choosing a side or a position and then defending that and digging in, that's not likely to work to find a solution that will work for everyone. So instead of focusing on defending a position, try to explore the underlying interests. See why are we here? What are people actually hoping to get out of this negotiation? Third, invent options for mutual gain. This means to come up with ideas about what might be a possible solution that would get each party closest to their ideal outcome. If you can come up with a solution that gets to everyone's shared interests and reconcile their differences peacefully and amicably, that would be an ideal outcome, right? So, and there might be more than one possible solution. So leave some room to brainstorm and come up with possible solutions besides just I win, you lose. This orange is here. I have a story to go with this orange. So for instance, say there is an orange and you have two people that both want it. The logical, obvious solution might be to slice it in half and give each person half of the orange. That seems fair. That seems logical. Each person gets half. But if you take a moment and ask the parties why they want the orange, what is their interest in this orange? We might find out that one wants the peel and one wants the fruit. They have different reasons for wanting different parts of the orange. But by doing this conversation and getting into the underlying interests in the orange, we can then divide the orange in a way that gives each person 100% of what they wanted out of the deal. One person can have the whole peel, one person can have the whole fruit. And that's even more fair than the initial divide it in half solution would have been. So take some time, invent new options that might give each person more of what they wanted. And you get to that solution by looking for their interests as opposed to just observing their position, which in this case might have been I want it. And the other person's position might also have been I want it. So I get one, you get zero. And this way they each get 100% of the part of the orange that they wanted. And the last point is to use objective criteria. This means to use an objective measure of value or fairness when you're judging the suitability of a possible outcome. Sometimes this would take the form of an independent judge of fairness or an independent source of information. This might be an expert opinion, it might be tradition, it might be what the law says. I have a picture of a car here. Say we have an example of a person who wants to sell a car and a person who wants to buy a car. The seller might have a goal of getting the highest possible price because they want to have that income. The buyer might want the lowest possible price because they don't want to spend any more than they have to obtain the car. In this scenario, it might be impossible to come to a solution that gives each of those people what they want. So we need to find a compromise that gives them each a fair solution. So it might not seem like it's possible to get one person a high price and one person a low price. So we will go to an objective measure of value. In this case, it might be something like the market value of that car or the Kelley Blue Book value, this KBB. So that might be a guide to finding a fair solution for everyone. So finally, just to review, principled negotiation or negotiation on the merits asks us to think about these four things to come to a good solution. Separate the people from the problem, focus on interests, not positions, invent options for mutual gains, and base our results on objective standards. If you're interested in learning more, I recommend this book, Getting to Yes, by Fisher and Uri. And also check out the website for the program on negotiation at Harvard Law School at this web address. Thank you for your time. All right. If you have any questions, please get in touch. I highly recommend the book Getting to Yes. It's one of my favorites. So good luck. Have a great week. Talk to you soon.